Another week, another blowout Big 12 victory for the Utah Utes. How did this one happen? We're going to talk about it right now on Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first view and listen of the day. And thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network. My name is JT Wistersill, and we got to talk about one of our favorite topics on the season, what continues to be the Utah Utes throttling every Big 12 opponent in their way outside of Texas Tech and BYU. But this is about what the Utah Utes did tonight against the Baylor Bears, and it was a massive win for the Utah Utes, who are now 8-2 on the year, third in the Big 12, 55-28. Utah beat Baylor. Just the level of dominance that Utah has displayed this season outside of those two games that I mentioned, it's really insane to think this team has not played, like, the letdown game hasn't come, even when I know some people were disappointed in the defense. I honestly, can you be disappointed in the defense? Yes, they gave up 28 points. Baylor's passing offense does some things that I think are good with the way how much this Utah team plays. I thought this was a matchup that could have a Baylor team that scores a little bit more tonight offensively than a Utah defense might normally and typically give up. Sawyer Robertson's a good quarterback, and he takes chances. Sometimes those chances turn into turnovers. Utah picked him off twice tonight. Great to see Elijah Scooby Davis get a pick six, and I know he's going to be out next week as the dumb penalty late, but hey, getting Trey Reynolds to get a pick in there too was still a positive. And overall, this Utah defense still held a talented Baylor offense under 30 points. So I get it if we look at this and we're like, hey, wish it was even less. But at the end of the day, it's another blowout Utah Utes win because the Utah offense continues to steamroll everything in their path. This Utah rushing attack, 380 yards. We knew Baylor was not good at stopping the run, but I still wasn't sure if Utah would get close to 400, and they did tonight. Just an incredible performance. And honestly, how about Byrd Ficklin? I mean, what a difference maker he continues to be for this team. This true freshman quarterback, who I thought coming into the year was still going to be the third string quarterback behind Isaac Wilson, has just meant everything for this Utah Utes team. It has been so much fun to watch him go out there. The speed he plays. How about that? The stiff arm. That was incredible when he threw that out there too. He only completed 2 passes, but it just doesn't matter right now. This Utah team is running the ball so well, they don't need to complete a pass. This Utah offensive line is, Kyle Whittingham said, I think this is the best offensive line we've ever had at Utah. And honestly, now that we're 10 games into the season, he very well might be right. I mean, the reason to me, and we talked about this earlier on Locked On Utes this week, the reason to me that Utah is able to dominate each of these teams they play by so much, like the defense is really good too. And that's because of how good the corners can hold up in man and the pass rush there. But the reason that Utah dominates so many teams, it's not the best collection of skill talent. And Devon Dampier, obviously banged up. We can talk about that in a moment. Devon Dampier is not having the type of season that's like, oh, this is the best quarterback season Utah's ever had. So why is Utah blowing out everyone, blowing out these P4 teams in some ways like we've never seen before? We've seen Utah beat up on teams before, but blowout after blowout after blowout. And I know the 2019 team kind of did that, but I don't know. This just feels different, like to be one of the best teams in scoring margin in the country. Coming this weekend, you're top 8 in offense and defense. Only Tech and Indiana can say that. And Utah will probably drop out of the defense one for what they allowed. But this team, the reason this Utah team is this dominant is the offensive line. They are they're a professional moving company. My gosh, their ability to move defensive linemen, linebackers, to work their way up to the second level is something that is just to marvel at. This group is so good, led by Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu, and they just generate so much consistent movement. And Utah has the talented playmakers to take advantage of that movement. Hence why we get another massive Wayshawn Parker game. Those of us who have kept our stock in Wayshawn Parker since the start of the season when Naquari Rogers was getting more carries of him, continue to be rewarded tonight. 15 carries, 129 yards, 8.6 yards per carry. He averaged 7 yards per carry coming into this game and will continue to just raise that. He's just having a remarkable year. The breakaway speed, the long touchdown, also caught the short little pass from Dampier in the end zone, which was, you'd love to see that too, just him contributing in multiple ways. So he was incredible. I already mentioned Byrd's speed too. I mean, about the 74-yard run he ripped off. He averaged 27 yards a carry, 6 runs, 166. He was just remarkable. Jason Beck was in his bag early. The touchdown pass to Dallin Bentley was awesome. Nice to see J.G. Buchanan contribute here. And I mean, for Utah to win, if you would have told me Ryan Davis would have only had 9 yards, I would have thought Utah was in trouble. And yes, this game was a little like the Baylor Bears were within striking distance at time, but we see what the final score ended up being and how much the Utah Utes ended up dominating the opposition. And one of the reasons, though, this was a closer game, at least at first, is Devon Dampier just wasn't himself. He looked off, wasn't right. And Kyle Whittingham said post-game that, yeah, if we had a game last week, Dampier actually wouldn't have played, which to me was shocking because I thought the Cincinnati performance was arguably the best he's looked all season. So now you're telling me that he wasn't even close, that he got hurt in that one too, and he looks fine throughout the game. It's just clearly he's battling through injuries, and it's where it's a luxury right now that this Utah team has a Byrd Ficklin they can turn to in times like this, because QB1 Devon Dampier is a clear difference maker for this Utah team, and they need him if they want to beat the best teams. But against some of the lesser Big 12 teams, they can use Byrd and blow them out too. And Dampier still made things happen, right? 8 carries, 23 yards in total, but helped engineer some of those early drives. 6 for 13, don't love that, but still was able to make the plays too. Just like on defense, we saw so many guys flying around making plays. How awesome was to see Cash Dillon finally get a sack, or I think he got one other one early on the season, but seeing Lander get home. DeMooney had a nice game with 5 tackles. Jonathan Hall with 6 tackles here too. And yeah, it wasn't the greatest game the cornerbacks have ever played, but it's a really good Baylor receiving corps. Like, these are guys who are having incredible seasons, right? Like Sawyer Robertson mentioned, he's one of the best at passing yards in the country. How about they asked him to throw him 58 times tonight? I just think that's wild. So 430 yards for him, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Washington had a solid day on the ground. And yeah, Utah's defense, they got the ball moved on them, but this is a talented Baylor offense. So I'm not really concerned by that. You look at the games that Baylor's lost, a lot of them, they've put up a lot of points in them, right? So you had 3 guys with over 80 plus receiving yards, 2 with over 100 for the Bears. Once again, that's a good Baylor offense. Like that, they were going to move the ball tonight. That's what we thought going in, and that's what ended up happening too. But they didn't move the ball as well as the Utah Utes were able to. Utah with 20 first downs. Actually, Baylor did end up outgaining Utah, but those turnovers were killers. And the Utah Utes, just efficiency in the red zone and their ability to dominate the trenches and make the key plays when they need to make them continues to be a difference on the season too. Even in a game like this, you get outgained and you find a way to win because you create turnovers and you execute on key down and distances like the Utah Utes continue to do and have done all season long. Jason Beck, Morgan Scalley in their bags tonight, helping slow down or spring break plays in key spots when the Utah Utes need it. And in large part because of their efforts, this Utah team is 8-2. Now, as it pertains to Utah in the college football playoff discussion, this is not the greatest week for that. BYU would have been nice if they maybe got upset by TCU, or at least looked a little shaky. Give the Cougs a lot of credit. Everyone have been saying, and myself included, hey, BYU, you need to look more dominant against inferior teams. They demolished the Horned Frogs tonight. Like, a very impressive win for BYU, and that's not good for Utah. What was good for Utah is Texas being not just eliminated, but they got blown out. It was 35-10. I think that kind of puts a nail in the coffin of the Texas Longhorns as a college football playoff team in 2025. So that's one team that will drop below Utah, and I'll see them crawling back up. But there were some teams that have a chance to leapfrog a Utah eventually. Not right now. Utah was too dominant. They'll stay above Miami. Utah, to me, will stay above a USC. But those teams are right behind them, so Utah needs to keep up their strong play against Kansas State and coming up against a Kansas team in the last week of the regular season too. But other things that there were a couple things that did not go in Utah's favor. I mentioned Baylor getting the win today. How about the Oklahoma upset? Come on, Alabama. Just when everyone starts to be like, this team's legit, they're awesome. Kalen DeBoer, he's not on the hot seat anymore. You go lose to an Oklahoma team that is, I think, a solid team, but not one that you should have any business to losing to if you're the caliber of team I think in Alabama is, which is a national championship contender. Don't feel that way about Oklahoma. Speaking of contenders, Notre Dame just throttled Pitt. And how good was that Pitt team right there? A lot of their wins came against unranked opponents. That's the conversation for another day. But at the end of the day, they look really good. So two teams of all 3 of the 4 teams going into this weekend that were like, oh, if they lose, they'll fall below Utah. They won. And that's not good for the Utah Utes. Ole Miss find a way to win. Georgia, obviously, beating Texas was good, but at the same time, does keep Georgia above a Utah. Georgia Tech found a way to win, even though I don't think they look super impressive. So there was just not a lot that went Utah's way in terms of their at-large bid. Now, granted, the one thing we can say is Cincinnati losing is okay for Utah. We could really use Cincinnati to figure out whatever's going wrong there, though, next week when they play BYU, because we still need BYU to get that second loss right now. That's something that Utah really could use to have happen. And Cincinnati might be their best bet, but man, did Soares being this team just struggle and not look very exceptional against an Arizona team that I think is fine at best. They're a solid Big 12 team, maybe a top 10 team in the conference, but they're not even close to the contender or calibers of this team. And Cincinnati was supposed to be among that. And then you fall after a bye week. You had 2 weeks to prepare. You had to sit with that Utah taste in your mouth, and you come out with that performance in Cincinnati. So in some ways it's good because we want them to get a second loss, but at the same time, they just don't look like a team that's going to beat BYU right now, which is concerning for Utah. But at the end of the day, the Utah Utes able to go in, get a big win against Baylor, and that is what matters most. So love the way this Utah team is playing right now. They are thriving and doing their part to try and crack the 2025 CFP. Today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Gametime. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at the checkout. It's exhausting. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets, the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is genuinely what you pay. I pulled up Gametime, and in just a couple taps, I got amazing deals. I'm talking earlier this year, I went to a P4 college football game for under $10. That's right. The app is made to be super simple. I could even see an exact view from my seat before buying. I love the zone deals too. Pick the section, Gametime picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. We're going to do a little shortened episode of Locked On Utes here. Just wanted to talk about this game, but excited to break it down in full detail coming up next week. So Monday's show will have the full recap here. So make sure you guys tune in tomorrow for that. Just wanted to hop in with a quick reaction here. Apologies that we did not get to do our normal reaction and break it down everything live this time around, but appreciate all of those of you that do continue to make us your first listen and view every day. Huge shout out to our everydayers. We look forward to being back with you this week because when you play this good, you can't wait to watch this Utah team go out there and try to do it again. And Utah going to have a chance to do that when they play their final home game of the year against Kansas State coming up on Saturday. We'll have the breakdown of the game against the Wildcats coming up. And we'll have the preview for it because we'll have a breakdown of the Baylor game first, though, even in more depth on Monday. That's going to do it for Locked On Utes, and we will see you on Monday. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone. The Utah Utes steamroll the Baylor Bears. You love to see it.